right, good evening, everyone. Now that we've got all the difficulties out of the way, it's going to be one of those. I got a bean hole over my eye tooth and can't see what I'm saying. That's what my father used to say when he would get all tongue twisted. So anyway, before I go off into some weird tangent, let me start the recording and we shall proceed with a Liberty Talk.
The Constitution isn't just a document. It's a blueprint for freedom. We're breaking down politics at every level, exposing government overreach, and going where the mainstream media surely won't. Join us in defending individual rights against the bureaucratic tide. You're listening to the Missouri Liberty Report.
All right, folks, and we are back. Thanks to Brandon and the big save there. We're back with another Marxist edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Yes, Brandon, I sent this new software. I have to send him a link. He clicks it, he joins in, blah, blah, blah. We can see his webcam, hear his audio. And we're just sitting around chit-chatting. He's like, oh, Tom's going to join us tonight because it's the first Tuesday of the month, right? And I went, ooh, maybe. I have to contact Tom. And Tom, fortunately, had the free time. And he was probably wondering, how come I haven't heard anything from Meathead Williams? But Tom's with us tonight. Good evening to you, Tom.
Good evening.
All right. So we've got all kinds of different things that we can talk about tonight. But Tom, since I know, again, we haven't been communicating about what we're going to talk about tonight because, again, I went old man, Alzheimer's guy on us. But you sent a link out about a particular lawsuit that's being filed against Senate Bill 3, that is the tax credit package for the Chiefs and the Royals. So if you would enlighten everybody who maybe has not heard about this yet and explain the lawsuit, the reasoning for the lawsuit. I mean, anybody with common sense is going to know the answer, but let's have you lay it out and we will discuss this. Very important.
Well, Ron Calzone, Mike Moon, and Bryant Wolfen are all, I guess, they're defendants in the suit. And basically, they're bringing the suit because the piece of legislation that the governor signed is in violation of multiple sections of the state constitution. It grants taxpayer money to a private entity. So that's in Article 3, Section 38, I think. Something, subsection A, B, C, D, or E. I can't remember which violation. It has multiple subjects. It deals with money to the Chiefs. It deals with money to the Royals. I can't remember if the bill that actually passed also deals with money to some of the sports authorities in St. Louis. It gives a tax deduction to people who were harmed in or had property damage in the St. Louis tornado that happened just before the extraordinary session, of which I found that one quite interesting because one of the state reps was discussing that piece of legislation. And basically the Democrats, I guess, were going to vote no unless that was put into the bill. Well, this state rep is making the case that because she didn't have homeowners insurance, well, she can't afford to rebuild her house. So apparently in her mind, then she should be able to take money out of the back pockets of everybody else who lives in the state simply because she didn't have homeowners insurance to cover the cost. And I think that's also part of that piece of legislation is that if you were not insured, but you received damages to your home from that St. Louis tornado, that you get a tax deduction. And pretty much the whole entire bill is basically the Republicans' way to prevent or hope to prevent the Kansas City Royals and the Kansas City Chiefs from relocating to Kansas City or to relocating to Kansas, excuse me. And also part of the bill was that some of the counties were allowed to or to put forth I think a vote to the people to determine whether or not they were going to roll back a certain segment of their property taxes. Now, it was not for all 114 counties, 119 counties, whatever it is that we have in the state of Missouri. It was only for select counties. And if I remember correctly, that idea was originally floated by Senator Joe Nicola, which that part is unconstitutional too, because at that point in time, he was just making it for the county to which he represents. And then, as I understand it, Senator Schroer decided that he was going to take that amendment. He was just basically going to make it so that it was no longer Senator Nicola's, that it was his. And then he put the amendment back into the piece of legislation, and all of these other senators say, hey, I want my county to be exempt. I want my county to be exempt. I want my county to be exempt. But not every county has the same exemption. There's only certain counties that do. So there's I'm going to say there's probably 4 certain sections within the Article 3 of the state constitution, and there's several in Article 1 that piece of legislation is in violation of. And the plaintiff, Ron Calzone, and plaintiff Bryant Wolfen and plaintiff Mike Moon are taking it to court to prove such, so they can get hopefully they get the whole entire bill thrown out. But based on the fact that it's trying to save the Kansas City Royals and the Kansas City Chiefs from moving to Kansas, it would not surprise me one bit that a black robe wearer decided to throw everything out except for the part of the bill that allows for the funding of the new stadium for the Kansas City Chiefs and the new stadium for the Kansas City Royals.
Yeah, go ahead.
I said, end of rant.
Yeah, that would not surprise me either, because some of us understand how the black robe wearing tools do their thing. So yeah, I'm with you, Tom. I can totally see them pulling something like that, saying, "Oh yeah, well, all this other stuff has to be knocked out." But us judges, we're sports fans too. We don't want to drive across the state line to see our see the football team play. I mean, honestly, it's going to move into Kansas City, Kansas, I would assume. So it'd probably be like another 15 minutes, and you're there. It's just you have to cross the state line to do it, and then suddenly that's like, I don't know, heresy, because you cross the state line to go watch the football team that you like play a game. I don't know. Now listen, I get it. I'm not a Chiefs fan. I could care less about Chiefs football, right? I'm not a Chiefs fan. Never have been. Growing up, I was a Redskins fan. They're still the Redskins. I don't care what they say. They can call themselves Commanders, Commandos, whatever. They're still the Redskins to me. I grew up a Redskins fan, so I've never cared about the Chiefs. But I also don't believe that you should. Here's something I didn't bring up the last time we talked about this. I did not bring up the fact, I don't believe, that the NFL is a 501c3 organization. They are a tax exempt organization. One of the richest sports in the world is a 501c3. I'm not sure if, let me see. I'm just going to look our NFL team's 501c3. Let's see. Because, I'm sorry. It looks like the NFL gave up their tax exempt status. I wonder when that was. They used to be. This says 2015. I could have swore they still were. Maybe I was wrong, but I just wanted to go see if. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
they were a C6, not a C3.
C6. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, Section 501c6 of the Internal Revenue Code specifically defines professional football leagues as exempt organizations under that section. These organizations are exempt whether or not they administer a pension fund for football players. Okay, so here's another part of my ignorance showing. What is a 501c6 organization?
It's deals with classified as a business league or trade association. So it basically has the same exemptions as a C3, but they have their formation of how it is that they're structured is completely different because they're not really a for-profit organization like they proclaim, kind of like your hospitals are proclaimed to be not for profit as well. But the tax code is formulated so generally, and I noticed I pulled it up too in 2015. They gave it back, but generally all these sports leagues all fall under the 501c6 tax exempt status. Doesn't mean that the players don't pay taxes, but the league itself does not.
I just want to jump in with a quick note here about nonprofits in general. People have, like, a lot of people, I used to just, for pure ignorance standpoint, the people who run the 501c3s and these nonprofits, they can take home massive salaries. I mean, they can give themselves, I don't know if there's a cap on it or not, but I think, like, the only technicality is you don't keep profits. Like, something happens to the profits that you make, but that has nothing to do with the salaries that these people can give themselves. So you can technically be tax exempt and give yourself a $20 million salary, because I know that Roger Goodell, who was the commissioner of the NFL, he made like $20 million probably close to a decade ago. So it's probably more than that now, and people have this misunderstanding that just because, like, you can have an entity make a ton of money and you can have the owner of that entity make a ton of money and it would still technically be nonprofit.
And therein lies my issue, fellas, right? If they had that, if they were still 501c6, right? So they're structured in a way, like I said, they're not supposed to be for profit, which is really weird, because why would you own a business venture and not want to make a profit? That doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever. If they still had that tax exempt status, then why do they need all the other tax credits? I don't understand why they think they still need that. This kind of crap ticks me off because, well, regardless, we have a sports team that's getting the tax credits, which are unconstitutional, and no one else, no mom and pops, no medium-sized business, they're not getting squat. Now, unless you're big ag. If you're big ag, you're going to always get your tax credits because the governors will make sure of that, and a lot of reps and senators will make sure of that. But if you're a big business, you'll get you're the first one to get tax credits, tax cuts, whatever. And I don't. Anybody that can get away with paying less taxes, here's where my brain goes, right? Anyone who can get away with paying less taxes, good for you. But if your state legislature is making rules where a certain class of people get the benefits and the others get left out, that makes me angry. Because it's not like this group figured out a way to, like, funnel their way through a bunch of tax laws and figure out how to pay less taxes. That's one thing. If the legislature is writing laws or passing bills that give you an exemption for so many years, then I have a bigger problem with that, because now these folks are acting unconstitutionally and defying that document and saying, well, that it sucks for you all, but we really can't have this football team move 15 minutes across this line between two states. So sucks to suck, but they come first. And it's like, okay, what are you afraid that enough people won't be entertained by football? Like suddenly you'll have a mass exodus of Chiefs fans not wanting to cheer for them anymore, not watching football on Sundays. So they won't be distracted by football. So you can keep continually screwing them over during during the session. Is that what you're afraid of? I mean, what are you so afraid of? But yeah, it really chaps my buttocks. That Now I will say it was nice to see more people than I'm used to kind of saying, "Hey, what are we doing here? Like, why are we doing this?" Not enough people, because I'm sure there are plenty of fans like, "Please don't let them move across the state border," But there were more people kind of up in arms about it than I expected them to be. So that was kind of nice to see. I don't know.
So
Go ahead, Brandon.
I was just going to give my quick thoughts on the whole lawsuit really quick. So, of course, it's Mike Moon and Bryant Wolfen being a part of this lawsuit. They're heroes even in the offseason. So even when session is out, you can still count on them to defend the Constitution, which is why both of those guys will have my full support next time they're up for election. I'm sure they're going to try to, the state in their lawsuit efforts are going to try to if they're going to try to figure out how this bill doesn't violate Article 3, Section 21 and 23 of the Constitution, they're going to have to make it about just like generalized funding. Because if I'm hearing correct what Tom was mentioning, this deals with entertainment funding, disaster funding, and then there was something else in that bill too. Those two alone are not even close to the same thing. So you can talk about how it's funding, but you're just conflating two very different things. And then also, I want to clarify if this is what Tom was saying, that somebody in St. Louis who didn't have insurance for the tornado, they don't have the money to rebuild, and so the state is giving them that funding through this bill. If that's what I was hearing correct, that seems crazy to me, because what are you telling all the people who have insurance? That either they don't need to get insurance in the future and that we're just going to cover them when disaster happens, or are we going to reimburse the people who have insurance who did it the right way and are, getting settlement checks from their insurance companies? Because it's a lot easier than rebuilding from scratch, of course, but dealing with an insurance company, especially after a disaster when all of the other people in your area are trying to get bids, even doing the right thing is complicated. And it's not always as simple as like someone shows up, gives you the money you need, and you get to work right away. Oftentimes it takes weeks or months to get an appraiser out there and then get a bid on the job and then get everything in place. So I don't know. I think that's one of the crazier parts of the bill, is basically just doing away with disaster insurance is what it sounds like. If you're going to just give people the same coverage if you're going to cover people the same way as an insurance company would have, as the state, that might actually be the craziest part of this bill.
Tom?
That's one of those things that, and I read this it may have been in the Missouri Independent, that one of the state reps was talking about how it was that the Democrats wanted to put this in the bill. And she didn't say she did this specifically, but I kind of got this inclination while reading the article that this was a definite. You have to put this in this piece of legislation to get Democrat support. And because she made the comment that she's one of the homeowners there that had her house destroyed and she was uninsured, which kind of led me to ask, was the house paid for? Therefore, she just decided that she didn't need homeowners insurance, or did she have a loan on the house, which then does require homeowners insurance? then that begs the question, was she getting some sort of workaround simply because she is a state representative and the company who has the loan on that home either decided not to require her to have homeowners insurance, or she had homeowners insurance at one point in time, just decided to stop paying for it, and the loan company had not caught up with her yet. Because I know as soon as my homeowners insurance on my home isn't paid, I'm getting a notification from the company that still has the paper on the house. Hey, you need to get your homeowners insurance caught back up, because as it stands right now, we can, and they give you like three options. You either pay your homeowners insurance, the loan company, which is Wells Fargo, decides to insure it for me and then bills me for it. And then there was the third option where basically they take over the house and we're given the boot because we're in violation of the contract of when we first purchased the home.
Okay, so her name is Kimberly Ann Collins. She described with a cracking voice how she witnessed the tornado rip the roof off her house and damage her St. Louis neighborhood. Collins said she has no home insurance, slept in her car for days, and has accepted food from others. And then let me pull this up here real quick. Oh my God, what a stupid thing. This is from St. Louis PR, stlpr.org. Let me copy this, and I'm going to bring this article over real quick because this seems so this is from June 4th. St. Louis NAACP urges elected officials to ensure black homeowners get full insurance coverage. But now I want to see. Oh, so they issued recommendations, but encouraging city officials to act on behalf of uninsured homeowners during this time. The civil rights organization also wants insurance companies to be more transparent with North St. Louis homeowners who hold policies with limited coverage and those who previously held policies that may have been denied for total coverage. Leaders also want state lawmakers to revise insurance laws to help more homeowners to help get more homeowners fully covered. So here we go. We got the NAACP out here calling, I'm sure they wanted the city, and that's maybe where the idea for this funding came from too, in this bill, this SB3. But now the NAACP is going to sounds like they're going to be pushing for the state to revise the laws. I'm sure they're going to want them to subsidize home insurance because that's always what they do. We'll just subsidize it. And then all the while they'll drive the home insurance rates up for the rest of us. God forbid, on top of rising property taxes. Yeah, let's just jack the home owners insurance rates up while we're at it when we subsidize this whole thing. Or they'll try to. I don't know if they can get something like that through. This kind of reminds me of the article that I read years ago about the American Cancer Society going to each state and telling them to raise taxes on cigarettes $1 a pack because they literally in the article it said you'll get more tax revenue and fewer people will smoke. It kind of reminds me of the same thing. It's like, listen, your job is to try to find a cure for cancer. That's what you tell us. Your job is not to walk around here and go to every state and try to convince them to increase their tax revenue. The NAACP's job, I'm pretty sure, is not figuring out a way to get the state of Missouri to rewrite laws on insurance and probably help to get subsidies for people who have an income of below this amount or whatever. Or that it'll be racist because it'll be like, well, only black people can get this help. You white people, you're poor white people, you don't get this. Just poor black people get these subsidies. So there's all kinds of ridiculous stuff. And again, Okay, so between her and somebody else, there's another lawmaker here in Missouri that someone was telling me about. And he got elected, I guess, in 2024. Maybe it was 2022. Because he said this guy has done nothing. Oh, it was another rep. He goes, the guy is in his early 30s, did nothing, right? Had really no job, nothing to speak of. But then they were going to do some work around St. Louis somewhere, and it was going to damage this certain site. So he like jump started this whole movement to try to keep him from bulldozing this area and building new stuff on there. And he used that to propel himself into into state rep. But he said before that, the guy had done nothing. He'd hardly held a job. These are some of the state reps we have, folks. I'm not saying that somebody has to have a certain career to be a state rep. I see way too many people who are business owners becoming state reps and thinking that government has to run like a business, or they say I'm a business owner and I can get the government to run better. Because generally, again, like I stated earlier, if you're going to run a business, you run it for profit. If you're going to run the government like a business, that means you're going to try to run the government and have it to be profitable, which is not the ideal situation in the way that government is supposed to run. It's not supposed to be a for-profit entity. So this whole thing raises red flags all over the place when you have lawmakers acting this way. You know, organizations like the NAACP acting this way. I don't get all warm and fuzzy feelings from this, and I'm just wondering um, what their priorities will be going into the next session. Which reminds me, folks, I'm going to try to do something different when the session starts in 2026. I'm going to go to the Capitol, but this year, instead of prioritizing talking to Republicans, I am going to try to get a hold of the minority floor leaders for the Senate and the House. Both are going to be Democrats, of course. And I'm going to sit down with them, and I'm not going to really interview them, but I want to try to get an idea from their perspective this time, because we hear the same thing from a lot of Republicans every year. We need to shrink the government and lower taxes and blah, and they do everything but that. So I want to hear from the Democrats this year. I'm going to go in, try to set up 5 minutes with somebody from the House and the Senate that are the minority leaders and say, what are the Democrats' priorities for this session? Just as something different than I generally normally do. I want to go. Of course, I'll go see Representative Wolfen. I'll try to go see Senator Moon for a little bit, maybe a few others. But I really want to hear from the Democrats this year. Just to see what priorities they name over what we get every single year from the Republican leadership. Again, for the last few years, it's been taxes, IP reform, abortion, shrinking government, all these things that you hear every year that they don't do generally. So let's hear from the Democrats this time, and we'll see if I'll see if I can get that hooked up in January someday, and take a trip to the Capitol, interview them both, see what they have to say for themselves and what their plans are as far as legislative priorities for the coming session. I think that'll be an interesting tidbits of information to glean from them. But all right, I've gone on long enough talking. Tom, any last input?
Yeah, now that I actually found the press release, it provides taxpayer subsidies to the owners of sports teams for building and improving stadiums and even privately owned headquarters. It allows holders of elective office to use campaign funds to pay attorneys to defend legal challenges brought against them related to the bill, which would otherwise be a forbidden use of campaign funds for a personal use. It provides property tax relief via tax credits to homeowners, disaster victims, and allow some but not all counties to vote on the adoption of the tax credits for property tax relief for all homeowners.
Okay.
Those are the four things that the bill is being challenged for under the constitutional restrictions of which the People's Law was passed that our legislature ignores.
Tom, I want to get your take on something because Brandon and I talked about this last week because you brought up his name. You brought up when Schroer kind of stole the thing and reintroduced the amendment for some of those tax breaks and everything. What is your take? So Brandon and I covered that ethics complaint against Joe Nicola about the way campaign funds were directed from a PAC to him, but those funds originated from the church that he is a pastor and president of. And even though they're saying the MEC is saying he did nothing wrong, I've thought about this over the last several days. It's still hinky to me. I don't like it at all. And if I make the Sparks people mad, so be it. That's what Tom jokingly said. I'm going to get the eye. I'm going to raise the ire of the Sparks folks. But give me your take on it, because to me, it still stinks to high heaven, whether the MEC says it's okay or not, or that they didn't do anything unethical. I'm still not a big fan of it.
You know, you can make the case that it's not unethical, but I don't think you can make the case that it's principled. Now, if you were to flip Joe Nicola out of the equation and put in any Democrat that has had the same identical thing happen, would the Republicans go, nothing to see here, no big deal, don't worry about it, everything is on the up and up? I don't think they would. I think they would be screaming from the high heavens. And if you're an individual who is a duly elected senator from the state, you also happen to be on the board, I think, of the church. The church then donates money to a PAC, which then ends up either supporting you as a member of the church and as a hierarchy of the church, or it goes into some sort of fund, which then also benefits you as an individual, not only of the church, but of the hierarchy of the church. I don't want to be called an anti-Semite. I think, biblically speaking, that somebody should go, this doesn't look kosher. It doesn't look right. I know that the senator has no control over a PAC. I know the senator probably does not have sole control over the money that gets taken out of the tithing and then appropriated towards a PAC. But if it were me, I would certainly request that whatever money that PAC has in it from my church to please return it, because it just looks absolutely unprincipled. But that's my opinion. I'm not the one who's elected. I'm also not the one that's the hierarchy in the church. I'm also not trying to promote my biblical views within legislation. I'm just the average, ordinary guy who kind of looks at things and goes, well, that kind of seems suspicious. There's something wrong there. And it could be on the up and up 100%, but does it look principled? Does it look moral? Does it look like something that a church should be doing based on the biblical principles of the church?
Okay. I had this conversation with some friends the other day, and I want to get both your takes on it. This is going to tick some people off. So, but Tom, you and I brought this up to you the other day, and it's something that I think about all the time. There are an awful lot of Republicans when they run for, especially when, here in Missouri, that run for rep or senator. And the one thing that this as a person drives me insane when they say this, right? But this is my opinion, and I'm entitled to it. But there are so many of them who want to say, well, God told me to run for office. And I'm like, all of you Republicans, he told all of you to run? Are you freaking kidding me right now? And to me, that screams this is a way to get the Christian right to vote for me. The people who go to church and vote Republican, this is the way I'm going to get them to vote for me, because I'm just going to say this. And I'm sorry, hopefully I don't get hit by lightning here, but I'm going to say that they're full of crap. But Tom, you go first. Brandon, you follow up. What are your thoughts on this? Because every time I hear them say it, and this isn't just recent. This has been the last couple years. This is just something they seem to say now. And I'm like, okay. Like, it seems like you're just trying to entice people to vote for you because you say the key words that they want to hear. But give me your take on this, or you don't have to, but I ask you for your opinion. And I guess I'll just say this. Do you think this is just a way of trying to get people support and votes by saying this key phrase that a lot of Republicans here in Missouri throw around?
I think there are a lot of things that the Republicans and sometimes the Democrats as well, because I've heard, like, I was watching the YouTube video the other day of the documentary on Trayvon Martin, and I was listening to the parents of Trayvon Martin. They were all, praise the Lord. No, I'm sorry, you don't get to use the Lord in this instance, because that's just wrong. And I think, in all sincerity, if you do pray and you believe that God answered your prayers and God told you to run, don't make that the crux of your whole campaign. I mean, say it once, maybe twice. I think my prayers were answered and God told me to run for office. Okay, let's do that once, be done with it, get it over with. But I'm not too certain that the greater percentage of people who use that phrase use it in a manner that it is factually accurate. Maybe they thought they heard God say they should run simply because they determined that they were going to run. So they need a reason on why it is that they decided to run. Therefore, they use, God told me to do this.
Okay. Brandon, your thoughts.
I'll just say that you'll probably never meet a group of more narcissistic people than politicians. So I mean, I could say that maybe they are so self-centered that they possibly think this is true. Now, at the risk of losing disaster funding for the state of Missouri, I will say, when they say God told them to run, were they necessarily talking about God or Jesus? Because I see a lot of our politicians in America go touch the Western Wall with the kippah on their head. And so maybe they're going to pay homage to the God that told them to run for office when they do that. I'm not exactly sure, but I don't think so. No, politicians will say whatever they think will garner them the most votes the most amount of times. Talking about 99% of them. So, I mean, like I said, you got guys like Mike Moon and Bryant Wolfen, but other than that, no, I think they're all just self-centered narcissists saying whatever they think will get them elected. And there might be a couple of them that are so narcissistic they might actually believe what they're saying, but it comes out of just being so self-centered you can't see past yourself. So I would say, in my opinion, no, none of them who've said it have meant it. But
I will say this. Now, Mike Moon doesn't say God told him to run. Mike Moon is a very, very Christian man. But Mike Moon also walks the walk and talks the talk. Like, he does both. And you can see it in just his everyday self. A very nice, warm, uh, kind individual. And he is not, that doesn't seem to be the least bit arrogant. So there are folks like him, but then you have a whole bunch that it's like, and they'll be like, I'm a Christian constitutional conservative. And I'm like, I'm not saying you're not a Christian. I can tell you you're not very constitutional, but you all seem to keep it. It wouldn't bother me so much. And I know it seems like I'm picking on people, and that's not what I mean here. But when I look at this Republican majority that we've had for the last several years and all the things that they've done, and how a lot of them have screwed over their constituents. You probably are Christian. You know, you have your beliefs, and I'm not picking on you for that. It's just that when they say these things, they all kind of sound alike. And I'm looking at people who run for office out of the two major parties. A lot of times they have the key phrases that they say. They're probably coached to say these things. I'm gonna put this up that Tom says this. Here, get that comment up there. But they all sound alike, and a lot of them that say that God told them to run for office when they talk about it, they sound alike. That's what bothers me. If they all had way different things they were saying, I'm like, cool, I'm with you. But when they all sound alike, it starts to sound like a campaign slogan. It starts to sound like something that, again, they're saying to get elected. And it's the same way with Democrats. Democrats will all pile on and say the same goofy things to get their voter base stirred up to vote for them. And it won't necessarily be religion, but it might be something about minorities or the trans community or LGBTQ plus HIJK elemental P, however you want to say it. They'll spew that out to get their voter base active and get them to show up at the voting polls. But anytime I hear this, it starts sounding like rhetoric, and then it gets on my nerves, because I believe that there are probably people out there that are being guided. Like, I would say Mike Moon seems like a guy that could have a divine hand on him. Like, hey, you need to try to get these other people in line. I mean, good luck to you, Mr. Moon, because you got a big uphill battle. But I could see someone like a Mike Moon being guided. Be like, be a light in that dark room, right? I can totally see that. A whole lot of the rest of them, I'm just like, and Tom, I want to highlight this comment. It says, people with narcissism often surround themselves with people who feed their ego. They build relationships to reinforce their ideas about themselves, even if the relationships are shallow. Yes, that is dead on, 100% accurate. But again, I don't want to make it seem like I'm picking on anyone, but these people BS everyone in this state constantly with how constitutional they are or how conservative they are. And then they show their true feeling. They show their true selves during the session. And I myself am a little sick and tired of hearing the rhetoric and the slogans and everything else. And again, I was talking to my friend Sam and Trish over the weekend. And, you know, Sam's like, I'm to the point where I'm becoming more of an anarchist as time goes on, because between Republicans and Democrats, there just doesn't seem to be any real difference for the most part between the two parties. And they don't seem to be looking out for any of us, even in this state. And he's like, I'm just becoming more more of an anarchist as I go along. And just get rid of government wherever you can. and just be done with a lot of them. And I can't say I disagree with that. Brandon, your take on anything else you want to add here?
Well, just the most I like you worded it better than me by saying and kind of pointing out that the best politicians that we have on the Constitution, they never claim that they're fighting this big fight based on God. They make all of their reasons based on the Constitution and precedent and holding themselves to a moral standard, but they don't ever say that like the reason they're there, they're being guided by God. And one of the most recent people that I can remember doing this is Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. And whenever he does things like send the House of Representatives on an early summer break and to avoid a bill about releasing more of the Epstein files, it's like, did God really tell you to do that? Did God tell you to send home the entire House early so you wouldn't have to vote on potentially uncovering a child sex operation or ring? So I don't, like the best politicians never invoke that kind of rhetoric, and it seems the ones that have like the least amount of knowledge or like understanding of like rights given to us by our Creator, they seem to fail on that part the hardest. So
that is a good point, because Ron Paul is a Christian man, but he didn't really ever like go. And you raise a very good point. Those people who generally do it for the right reasons don't have to brag, because you can see through their actions what type of Ron Paul's one of those guys, right? You could tell by his voting record. You could tell by the way he spoke. He was a principled individual. Thomas Massey's the same way. Mike Moon, Bryant Wolfen seem to be very principled individuals. They don't have to go around bragging about it. They don't have to make big posts on social media like, look at me. They don't have to make the dumbest. Okay, let's pull this up. Let me see if I can find this ridiculous thing that the ridiculous video that Tim Jones and Nick Schroer made, because holy smoke. And Tom, while I'm looking up this video, feel free to chime in here with your with what you want to say. But I got to find this video because it is absolutely ridiculous.
Hey, I'm just thankful that God spoke to you to remind you that it was the first Tuesday of the month.
Oh, yeah, no joke. I got to find this video. Oh, I think I got it right here. I got to scroll up. Oh, man, can I get this? I can't. Dang. Maybe if I just click the Freedom Caucus, it'll bring it up. All right, so there's the video. Let me see if I can copy and paste it over to my other browser, and I can let everybody see the wonderful idiocy that I had to see. Oh, great. Now it wants me to log in. Great. And I don't remember my login stuff. So anyway, I don't think it'll pull the video through. Anyway, Tim Jones is like, oh, we have a bigger, oh, now it's going to play it. You jackass. All right, let me restart this. I'm sorry, guys. I'm over here just like going full tilt stupid here. Let's see. Where is it at? Here we go. Let me share this. Let's listen to this lovely, idiotic stuff that Tim Jones and Nick Schroer did, right? Really? Why don't... Oh. Great. Somehow the audio did not turn on. Thank you. Let's try that one more time. Oh, God.
Cat herder for the Missouri.
All right.
Tim Jones here, former Missouri House Speaker and now Chief Cat Herder for the Missouri Freedom Caucus. You know, when we're taking on the rhino establishment swamp in Jefferson City, we always know that our gavels are bigger than theirs, but sometimes it calls for even greater firepower. Yeah, America! Freedom!
Oh boy, that was hard to watch.
So for those of you that are listening and are not watching the live stream, that was Tim Jones holding up this big giant gavel, and then Nick Schroer coming in with a flamethrower and screaming, "Yeah, freedom!" And that's some of your real hardworking conservative people in the Freedom Caucus and in the state Senate here in Missouri. Those are the people you can count on to be the most constitutional conservative people that you'll ever dream of seeing. When I ran across that on Facebook the other day, I almost spit my drink out because I started laughing so hard at that very childish attempt at looking macho.
So here's a couple things that bug me about it. Is Nick Schroer actually? They had an opportunity to like they could have made it about self-defense rights and the Second Amendment, and they could have like if you're going to use a flamethrower, they literally just use it like you said as a macho prop. But when you could have said is that like the government shouldn't be able to tell you what you can and can't own, including this, and then woofed that flamethrower, then at least you're making a point. But they didn't do that. They were just, we're cool. We have big hammers, fake wooden hammers, and flamethrowers because we're so cool. But I will say that like tactics like this surprisingly work. I remember back in 2016, you had Eric Greitens running for governor. You could go on his website and print out an ISIS hunting tag.
That's
and
true.
Now his last campaiin for governor did not go so well in the primaries. But I remember you could print off rhino hunting tags. That was his next big pitch. And then I can't remember what office she ran for, but the Valentina Gomez lady who ran in Missouri office and then moved to Texas. Well, she had that video where she pulls out that 9mm, shoots a crash test dummy in the head, and it's got like illegal immigrant on like a sign on it. And she goes, "That's what we need to do to migrants." Just like, what? Now, like I said, there's a couple examples of it not really working out because she's never been elected to anything. But I just think that like, if you're going to do something that dumb, you should have at least tried to tie it to some sort of principle or something. But you were basically making a reference to how you have bigger things than the Democrats and then busting open a flamethrower. I mean,
yeah,
we're at an idiocracy level of our politics. We're like that messaging, I guess they wouldn't have done it if they didn't think it worked. So I don't know.
What say you, Tom? I know you'll have something hilarious to say about this.
Well, both of those two promote themselves as conservative. And based on what I have garnered, a conservative is generally defined as someone who values established traditions, institutions, and practices, and who tends to resist or limit change in society and politics. Well, then that means that they would be defenders of liberty and they would be defenders of freedom, of which neither one of those two in the time that they have been in the legislative body have been very productive at doing. So does that then put them in the rhino category?
I believe, yes. I believe that would put them in the same category of people that they pretend to fight against. Yes.
Well, I would say it puts them in a classic Republican bubble. Like they're not conservative. Rhino is almost tough nowadays because all Republicans are Republicans in name only. You got like 4 conservatives on the national level and 3 possibly in the state legislature that actually would even be considered conservative. And so I'm not arguing with Tom's point at all. I just think the language on what a rhino is it would almost be like the Republic, like if you were a constitutional conservative and like true to those values, then you're almost a rhino because the Republicans in general are terrible on the Constitution.
Well, that's what I find odd about when they try to define that term, because based on even, when Darren Chappell filled in for Nick Reed, he did a little dissertation, because I've often asked him, I want to hear your definition of what a conservative is. Now, he went off on what is conservatism, libertarianism, and populism. What is a populist?
Yeah, populism. Yep.
And it seemed to me, and it gets more and more clearer every day of the week. For all those people that promoted Ron Paul as a libertarian, who profess to be conservative, like your Sean Hannity's, your Rush Limbaugh's, I know he's dead now, but your Mark Levin's, all of these people, they have no clue of what a conservative is. Because Ron Paul basically would be, based on his stances, based on his limited government, based on the fact that he viewed the people as a self-governing entity, the fact that he was an isolationist. Well, that simply means that we're not going to send troops overseas to fight somebody else's war for them. That's what an isolationist is. That's what George Washington was. So then that makes Ron Paul the conservative.
Absolutely.
There's going to be people going, well, no, he's a libertarian because he believed, well, so did the framers and so did the founders. Long-standing traditions is what's supposed to be what a conservative aims at maintaining.
Yeah, and they are falling very short of that goal. I mean, that's pretty easy to see. They're falling way short on their goal of maintaining any semblance of a constitutional republic. I mean, that's seems to be the farthest thing from their mind, and it just goes to show that the ability of some people to just BS a boatload of people into believing whatever bull hockey you can pull out of your butt. It's something else. You're talking about libertarians and Republicans and Democrats. Having a conversation with friends over the weekend, talking about the Libertarian Party or even any other party, like no shot at winning because Republicans and Democrats want to make the rules to where you can't get on a national debate stage. If you hit that level, whatever in a poll, we'll raise that number. He was 10%. Oh, now you got to be at 12, 18%. And this doesn't. I don't care if you are one of those people that's more of a Ron Paul conservative, or if you're a Nick Schroer type of conservative, whatever. Two, really far ends of the spectrum of conservatism is. I ask you this. If you're a Nick Schroer type, or you're a Tim Jones type of, or a Justin Sparks, or 99% of these people at the Capitol, if you're that type of conservative, right? And tell me why you wouldn't want, because most of these people don't care, but let's just ask this of them. Would you want a libertarian on the debate stage in a presidential campaign run? Because if you don't, to me, that speaks volumes that the message that the Republicans have isn't really good enough. It's not sound enough to where you say, oh, yeah, you can put someone from the Constitution Party and the Libertarian Party and the Green Party all up on stage with us, and my message will win because it resonates the best with the people. And it is the most sound constitutional or conservative message there is. They don't do that. They don't want the competition. They don't want somebody like a Ron Paul type getting up on stage and just nuking their ideologies, their messaging. You get another Ron Paul type running in the Libertarian Party, someone who's real strong, right? And you get them on a debate stage. For the Republicans and the Democrats, it's not going to go well. It's not going to go well at all. And because their messaging isn't sound, because what they're doing is not best for the country and for the people, they don't want people on that stage saying the things that probably a whole lot of people would agree with, because their messaging and the type of government they want doesn't suit the needs or the wants of the people, because it sucks so bad. So they can't have those types of people up there peeing all over their parade.
Well, you saw that during Ron Paul's 2008 and 2012 presidential runs, because I mean, if you talk to a number of libertarians, they'll all say that that's really where they became libertarians, is watching Ron Paul in 2008 and 2012. And and like if you had Dave Smith on a presidential debate stage with Donald Trump and Joe Biden, or Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, he would lap them. He would do circles around them. They wouldn't be able to hold a candle to that guy. I mean, I'm a little bit biased, sure, but I mean, after watching Dave Smith debate so many times on a number of different issues, not just Israel-Palestine, but on immigration and the economy and COVID and other things, they would be shaking in their boots at this point. And you're talking about Donald Trump, who, as far as establishment candidates go, is probably the best debater in history. And so, I mean, I'm being serious, just based on not necessarily his ability to make great arguments, but his ability to win over a crowd in 2024, 2025. It's almost unparalleled. Now, he's gone against some of the, when you try to think about who the people Donald Trump has debated before, you've got the 2016 field of Republican candidates, which had Jeb Bush, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio. Those guys aren't great debaters with great ideas. They're just establishment dupes who the Republican Party trotted out in front of the American people. And so that wasn't a tough win. And then you have arguably the most corrupt presidential nominee in history in Hillary Clinton, while she's going through a massive email scandal. And then you have barely sentient Joe Biden, and then Kamala Harris, who is almost worse than Joe Biden was at forming sentences that made sense to the American people. And so Donald Trump really hasn't had a lot of stiff competition in these debates, but I mean, he blows everyone else out of the water. And I think Dave Smith would just destroy him. So yeah, I don't think Republicans, especially establishment Republicans, have any they don't want to see a libertarian on the debate stage, especially one who actually knows things.
What do you think, Tom?
I'm a little bit leery of hearing Dave Smith debate. I mean, he's got, for lack of a better term, he's got Obama-itis.
What is that? Like Trump derangement syndrome, but with Obama?
Obama-itis is a guy, if you ever listen to Obama's speech, he says "I" so often that you just get tired of listening to him. I've now gotten that way with Dave Smith. He says "me" or "I" and brings the topic of conversation, even when he's talking to Robbie the Fire Bernstein in his Part of the Problem podcast. Rob will bring up something not even related to Dave Smith, and somehow Dave Smith will work around and figure out a way to get that conversation back into a debate that he had with somebody. And I sit there and think, my God, dude, just somehow leave yourself out of the conversation for once. Go with the flow. It doesn't need to come back to you. It doesn't need to be something that you have to take credit for, that you've done something. Yeah, I think he's a really good debater, but when it comes time for his podcast, oh man, I get so frustrated listening to him because he says "I" and "me" so often that I got to the point where as soon as he starts the "I did this, I did that," back in 1973 when I was someone when I was a third grader in high school riding my bike, I knew that the Twin Towers were going to fall on 9/11. It's like, oh, geez. I just turned him off. I have a hard time listening to somebody who, like a Donald Trump, figures out a way to take a conversation that's not even meant to bring them into the conversation, as in I did this, and somehow work the conversation around into that category. Obama was a master at it. Trump does it. That's why I texted you guys the definition of what a conversational narcissist is, because I think in all sincerity that Dave is a borderline conversational narcissist.
Oh yeah, I'm not going to argue with you on that point, but I just think that any politician, especially like of the two parties in the establishment we have, he would just dominate either one of them on a debate stage. Would he talk about himself the Monday following on part of the problem? Absolutely. He'd spend a full hour and 10 minutes patting himself on the back. But I think he would just destroy. I mean, I think the way he has 4 historical examples for everything he brings up. Like when he brings something up, he doesn't just say it. Like Donald Trump is the worst about just saying things without ever, like, sometimes when I'd watch a Donald Trump debate, I'm like, he'd be right, but I'm like, could you just bring up one fact, please? Like, could you just say one fact to back up what you're saying? Because like I said, I'd probably agree with him on about half of the things he's saying, but it just he has no underlying information. And maybe that's the libertarian in me that wants to hear some facts, but I don't know. I just think you'd have a guy like Dave Smith go in there and just totally expose his lack of like knowledge on issues. I mean, he's got stances and he's good at messaging his stances, like build the wall, drain the swamp, lock her up. I mean, he's a catchphrase artist, but I just think in a debate, he would just get smoked. And that is saying that Donald Trump has been the best establishment debater of the last 25 years.
Yeah, I agree. Like, if it came down to facts and it wasn't people talking over each other, people screaming at each other, and you just place the facts out there, Dave is going to win hands down. And it would be the same way if you put Scott Horton on the stage and you started getting into foreign, any foreign wars, any of that stuff. He's going to decimate them because they're, a general, again, like we were talking about earlier, both parties are very guilty of just catchphrase and rotating the same things in and out because the people seem to be captivated by it. You get a Scott Horton on the stage and says, I want to debate you on Iraq and Afghanistan. It's not going to turn out well for whatever schmuck they trot out on stage. I mean, he's gone up against, oh God, what was the general's name that he went up against? Or no,
Wesley
the colonel.
Clark.
Yeah,
no, it was General Wesley Clark.
He went up against Wesley Clark, and basically like, dude, you're the one that I don't know. It's No, Kevin, we haven't heard any good. Oh, okay, folks, I have to bring something to light now that Kevin Spacey has brought this up. If you try to go back and find last week's show on YouTube, you won't find it. I told a joke. It was inappropriate. It wasn't sexual anyway. There was no curse words. It was a dark humor joke. YouTube doesn't like that type of sense of humor, and so they took away all the advanced features of my channel because I violated community guidelines. Here's the funniest part. Brandon, you're going to get a kick out of this. When I told said joke, and I'm not repeating it, when I told said joke, Mr. Spacey here, in his head, was getting ready to type out the same exact joke in the chat, and he goes, better not. And then I said it, and that's why he wrote dude in all capital letters with exclamation marks, because he was thinking of the exact same joke. But yes, that joke got me in trouble. So if you want to watch last week's episode, you better go to Rumble and look for it, because YouTube said, and they cut that right off. Now, if you knew the exact title, you could find it. But if you don't know the exact title, you won't find it. So they just took it down from the listing. If you looked it up and by title, you would still find that video. But if you go to my channel and look through the listings, it looks like I didn't do a show last week because they took it right out.
That's crazy.
It's freaking hilarious. But no, yeah, I want to, what we've just been talking about. I want to briefly glance over it or briefly talk about it. Dave Smith, I tried to listen to Dave Smith and Alex Berenson's debate. I couldn't get through. I only got so far because they were yelling over, and they were both guilty of it. I get it. Dave was mad because Berenson starts off with, "You're a Holocaust denier, yes or no?" And so it ticked Dave off, and then it was yelling back and forth, calling each other names, and I'm like, come on, guys. At least one of you be civilized. Like, right? At least one of you. I get it. The other guy's jumping in on your stuff. You're aggravated, so you talk over the other person. But I will say, if you're going to go to a debate and you're going to debate somebody, Dave Smith has an awful easy time because most of these people, and it's not just with Dave, it's with other debates. They want to come in because they don't have any facts to back their argument up. They want to come in and they want to assassinate that person. They just want to try to label him as a racist or a Holocaust denier. So the people listening, just anything the other person says, they throw it out because they're like, I don't want to have the same beliefs as the Holocaust denier. So they pull out the ad hominem attacks, and it's like, come on. If you're going to come to a debate, the reason you debate is because you have a set of facts or you have a set of beliefs and the other person has opposite, and you're trying to win over the audience. The best way to not win over an audience, unless you're Donald Trump, of course, is to name call and talk over the other person and just sit there and get stuck on, are you an anti-Semite or are you not? Are you a Holocaust denier or are you not? And then spend the first 10, 15 minutes stuck on that. It is the most ridiculous tactic in a debate.
Well, it was just so in the very first couple minutes of the debate, Alex Berenson played the video from 2017 where well, that was what I was getting to, is that he anytime Dave Smith was like, yeah, I made a joke 8 years ago. What now? And then for the next 10 minutes, Alex Berenson was like, I don't have to say anything. We could just replay that video until you admit that you denied the Holocaust. And then also he even when they finally got past that point and Alex Berenson admitted that in that clip, Dave Smith was in fact joking, he then tried to ask Dave yes or no questions. He's like, so were you joking or weren't you joking? And Dave's like, do you have an argument to make? Because just make it. He's like, I'm not going to sit here and answer all these stupid leading yes or no questions. Just if you have an argument to make it. And Alex couldn't do it. Couldn't make another argument. And then does the same thing. I thought this was great too, because he brought up how Dave Smith is friends with Daryl Cooper, and that makes Dave Smith a Holocaust denier by proxy, basically, and that him hanging out with Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and Daryl Cooper is you're leading down a very bad path. And Dave was like, you worked for the New York Times when they were pushing the war in Iraq. And so don't act like me and my friends are a problem when you and your friends or your associates at the time were way worse than Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. I mean, I thought it was just another. I mean, I wouldn't even call that a debate win for Dave Smith, because that was worse than the Never Been. Yeah. I can't. That was worse than that one, as far as just no arguments were made, and it was just. I mean, by the end, you could see halfway through and then onward, you could see Alex Berenson was just fumbling, he had nothing. And I don't know how far you got, but I don't blame you. I actually posted on X. Under Dave's link for his video, I was like, this is incredibly hard to watch. Alex Berenson is an idiot. And 150 people liked that post. Just agreeing with your point that it was just unbelievably hard to watch.
It's very hard to watch. Let's move on here, because we talked last week about a county assessor who did not want to mess with the tax valuations, right? me share my screen real quick so we can do this. So I have an article here. It's from 3 days ago. KCTV Kansas City has this article up. Says Platte County doubling down on not raising taxes. So the county commission, the county clerk, and the Board of Equalization stood firm, refusing the state tax commission order to raise residential property assessments 15%. According to the state tax commission in 2023, residential property assessments came in 19% below the market value on average. They expected assessments to increase this year to catch up. Instead, they went down another 7%. That's why they're asking for the 15% immediate increase. Now, I love this. I love this, right? Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. I'm misreading this. I do actually love this, but I was being sarcastic in the beginning. It threatens the financial stability of hardworking Platte County families and should be unconstitutional, said Scott Fricker, the presiding county commissioner. Typically, you get an assessment increase notice, and if you want to appeal, you can. That right is gone. Fricker spoke passionately on Friday morning in a short press conference addressing the situation. He blames two things: Platte County Assessor David Cox's failure to complete the county's mandatory biannual residential reassessment, and the county's 5 school districts who are demanding property tax increases and who apparently can't operate without massive annual revenue increases paid for on the backs of hardworking Platte County taxpayers, Fricker said. After the press conference, Cox spoke to the TV5 saying he didn't do anything wrong. I'm not going to play childish games with this. I have done everything that I'm required as far as the statutes are concerned. I completed my reassessment. Uh, so Frigger also put the blame on the 5 school districts as they have written letters to the STC asking for help. They are furious that their property evaluations didn't go up 10% because they have budgeted increases. Maybe they should figure out how to do less with more. It's very unfair and actually very inaccurate for us to be blamed for this issue when, in fact, this is a county issue that has been in conversation and they've been on notice for several years, Wackel said. This is Kelly Wackel with the Park Hill School District. We know that public schools receive heavy funding in Missouri from our local taxpayers. They support our public schools, and it's also important to note that whenever assessment evaluations increase, school districts are not the direct beneficiary of all those increases. Frigger said while he would rather not, he's prepared to fight this in court and has been talking to the governor. The Platte County Commission, the county clerk, and the Board of Equalization are united in pursuing all legal and administrative remedies to overturn this decision and to advocate for a fair and transparent reassessment process, Fricker said. We encourage the public and all elected officials to stand with us and fight this unjust action by the Missouri State Tax Commission. So, first of all, Tom, your thoughts on this? I mean, it's nice to see some elected county officials and others fighting back against this this entity, and here we go again. These public schools, they just can't get enough tax revenue, and they allot themselves budget increases. Tom, I'll let you go here in a second. I'll let you start here in a second. But how in the heck, when you look at the testing scores of a lot of these school districts, how can you, with a straight face, approach the taxpayers of that county and have a legal, or just a moral leg to stand on and say we deserve more tax money? That just blows my freaking mind. You look at schooling, you look at the public schools, they're a mess. They're not getting any better, and they act like they're so entitled. They think they just should enjoy these automatic budget increases, and they beg the state tax commission to come in and help them get more tax revenue. It just seems like the most immoral thing that you could do to all the local taxpayers. But that's just me. Go ahead, Tom.
I think there are a total of 5, maybe 6 counties that are not going with the state tax commission's 15 to 60% real estate property tax increases, but I do find it rather odd that this issue came up 2 years after the legislative body passed a piece of legislation which put property tax freezes for seniors to the counties, and if the counties chose to want to do this, they would have to put it on the ballot, or I think they had to put it on the ballot, then the people had to vote for it, or perhaps the counties were able to implement it without the vote of the people. I forget exactly how that worked, but I just found it rather odd that you got all these people now who went and applied for a property tax freeze. Now they're being told 2 years later, well, sorry, so sorry, your property is not going to be assessed at where we said it was going to be assessed at. It's now going to be assessed at this newer, higher rate because the state tax commission says that we, the people who you elected to assess your property, aren't doing it to their standards.
Well, and here's the other thing that bothers me, Tom. I haven't read the language, but the STC brings up the Hancock Amendment and said, well, because of this amendment, everybody has to raise their tax valuations, all counties, equally across the board at 14.99%. So they're taking a constitutional amendment and they're using it to justify an equal across the board tax valuation increase. Now that bugs the hell out of me. Again, I have no use for the state tax commission. I don't have any use for county assessors for the most part. But that really bothers me that was what they pulled out of their hind ends was, well, we're just doing what the Hancock Amendment says. It's like, I don't think the Hancock Amendment forces you to raise taxes, the tax valuations or the property value. I don't think you're required by the Hancock Amendment to go around raising the property valuations because they're not at the level you see fit because you want to generate more revenue. And I don't know, it really eats at me. I don't know if you're probably a little more read up on the Hancock Amendment than I am, Tom.
It is one of the most convoluted systems besides bingo, stem cell research, and abortion that's in our Constitution because of the way it's written, the way it's determined. I mean, you literally have what could be considered public safety taxes like police, fire, those things that most people believe that should have an assessment to be provided for the public safety. But even because of the Hancock Amendment, because of like when property tax increases or the property tax or the sales tax and stuff go up, they are required to roll back their funding in order to stay within the certain confines of the Hancock Amendment. I met Mel Hancock back in, I'm going to say it was like 2004, maybe 2005, when I first started getting active here in Missouri. And he brought up the point that they were trying to do a Hancock Amendment 2 so they could clarify some of the things that were put in the Constitution under Hancock Amendment 1, and it never got that far. But the Hancock Amendment is one of those things that seriously needs to be looked over and make it feasible so a person who reads it can understand exactly what it's supposed to do, how it's supposed to be applied. And granted, the state tax commission is correct. It has to be applied equally across the board. But this is probably the first time ever that anyone in the state tax commission has ever opened up the document to read it.
Yeah, no, I'm
Well,
with you.
so that doesn't apply to state taxes. I mean, that applies to not just state taxes, but county taxes as well. So counties don't like. I mean, it just seems weird that like because certain counties will vote to like increase fire department revenue and things like that. So it's. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm just still kind of confused by it. Is it seems like something that would only apply to state taxes, like state income tax. They'd have to raise that equally across the board for everybody. But it seems like county by counties assessing their own values for homes, unless a large portion of that's going to the state budget, it seems, it just seems, I don't know, like misguided. But anyway, what I think would be interesting is if that school board that was like wanting their money, if they would like list out the actual grievances. So like, let's say that you were expecting like inflation has caused the price of food to rise this much. So then to feed the kids at the school, you need this much more in the budget, or like you're paying teachers X amount due to the rise of inflation. Like lay that out. I mean, because we have the county side on why they don't want to raise the taxes. It's going to financially harm their constituents. But like the school, they're like, well, we already budgeted that money. Like, where did you budget it? Like, where are you? Where's your shortfall in your budget if they don't increase these taxes? And why not just start a GoFundMe and try to get the private funding? If your school's that desperate, you would think if you just put out a message to the community, hey, our school's not going to have lunch for poor kids if we don't get some more funding, the community would totally step up and fund you. Especially if you didn't choose to raise their taxes. Then more people will be like, you know what? I'll give a couple bucks here and there because you didn't choose to raise my taxes. Like people, I don't know. Like when you start forcing a tax increase on people, they're going to be upset almost at the principle of a forced tax increase versus when you just ask for the money. You know, like whenever they have ballot initiatives for different things, those will pass a lot of the time. And so I don't know. John, do you want to tell everybody what you're laughing at over there?
No, I'm not going to say it on the air. This goes out on radio.
Oh, that's right.
Kevin Spacey put up a very interesting comment here. You know, I wish more people, some people, you know, they understand it. I wish more people would get behind the concept of voluntarism, right? Not this force. You're going to pay this fee. You're going to pay this extortion fee because I'm pointing a gun at you. You pay whatever you voluntarily hand some entity, some person, some organization money because you feel like that money is going to be, they're going to spend it the best. They don't have a bunch of people with six-figure salaries heading up the board for this organization. They feel like if I give my money to these people, they're going to spend it and it's going to go to exactly, 98% of it is going to go to whatever they're doing. If it's for veterans, if it's for, shelter, dog, animal shelters, whatever, they're going to spend it or they're going to donate, and they'll donate more because the government's not stealing everything out of your paycheck every week. And that just brings to mind anytime I get on social media and I see some idiot say that taxes are the price we pay to live in a civilized society, that drives me bonkers because I'm like, I don't know if you've seen society, but there's a lot of it that ain't so civilized right now, and neither is the government that's extorting this money from my paycheck or at every transaction that I make. Not very civilized group of people that continue to steal my money. So that argument holds no water. I hate when people say that, and there's still morons out there spouting that nonsense. Tom, any other thoughts on this? I mean, I don't know. It's again, I get it. So if you raise the taxes, you have to do it equally. And again, this is the first time they probably pulled that document out. Like, we got to find a reason. I know. We'll say the Constitution says so. And it's just like, okay, but does the document say you have to raise the taxes? No, I don't see anywhere it says, well, you have to. Every year you have to raise them because the school districts might not get a big screen TV in their room or some other stupid crap. So anyway, any other finishing thoughts on that? Any final thoughts on that topic, Tom?
Well, one of the things I determined, and I'm gonna deviate away from that topic, but
Okay.
it is related to that topic. I've got a buddy of mine who has a sprinkler system installed in his home. Now, as part of what I was told, as part of Missouri statute, they are required to have a backflow prevention test done on sprinkler systems. I'm assuming that if they were installed after a certain year. So when I called the local municipality to check on this for my buddy, I asked the lady, I said, I work in the water industry, and it just does not make sense to me that if you're sending pressurized water to an individual's house, how exactly is it that you believe that a sprinkler system can pollute your water supply? So she told me, well, if we have a reduction in our supply side, then the chemicals and the fertilizers and all the stuff that you use on your lawn could drain back into the water system. I was calling BS on that, but and I asked her, I said, well, then can you put me in contact with the person that can explain to me where it is that I can find this as part of state law? Because she told me they follow state law. And so she sent me to a different place. So the phone rang. I left a message. I got a call back from some guy, and I said, yeah, look, I'm just looking for the state law that requires this backflow prevention test done when people have a sprinkler system installed in their home. And he goes, well, that's not a state law. I said, okay, well, where are you getting it from? He said, well, we're getting that from the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. It's a rule or a regulation that they're abiding by. And it absolutely blew me away that we've gotten to the point now where it doesn't have to be a law for you to follow. Unlike the Hancock Amendment. When they want to get around the Hancock Amendment, which is in the Constitution, which is the law, they will figure out a way to do it. Because every September, if you want to get the tax back that you've been paying for your gas, you have to file a certain form with all of your receipts to pay for a gas tax that the state legislative body decided to implement over a 5-year period, which I firmly believe at the end of the second year, it was actually in violation of the Hancock Amendment, because you don't get to separate number 1 and number 2 and number 3 and number 4 and number 5. Once number 1's active and then number 2 becomes active, that's all one tax. It's not 2 taxes. But it seems to me that the Hancock Amendment, and yes, it does discuss governmental service fees at the local municipality level as well as state level. It's just everybody concentrates on the state level application because that's where they're the most familiar with it. Our problem is, including mine, I don't know enough about the Hancock Amendment to be able to discuss whether or not something would be in violation of the Hancock Amendment. Because up until an issue at the Stratford Fire Department and how it is that they were going to have to roll back some of their revenues because of the Hancock Amendment, I was not even aware that the Hancock Amendment dealt with local governmental issues as well as state issues. And I know it was modeled after Prop 13 in California, but I think it is one of the areas of the state constitution that very few people have come to understand or to research the Hancock Amendment. And if a judge says this is the way it's supposed to be, then by God, that's the way it's supposed to be, because he prayed to God about it, and that's what God told him.
Yeah, and so when you're talking about this tax thing too, like Catherine's been beating the drum on Lincoln County, the fire protection district. I gotta find. She's posted a lot of stuff on here
I
about
have it. Oh, sorry.
yeah. Well, just to let everybody know, it looks like it failed by what is it? Say? Let me pull this up. 58% to 41%. That's 41.98 percent yes, 58.02% no. I don't remember the increase. It was going to double.
Yeah. So as it was they were assessed at 39 cents for every $100, and they wanted to increase it by 37 cents per every $100. And the super messed up part for those listening is that they paid $16,000 to hold the special election because it's the only thing on the ballot is this tax increase, this Proposition Fire in for Winfield's Foley Fire District, and
Where did they hold the election at?
at the firehouse. And I love Catherine because she posted a picture on Facebook. I wish we could bring it up here. It was it's got these guys in shirts that say fire department. They're just walking around the building. They're just walking around, and she was like, this is what she said about it. You have to vote at the Winfield Fire Station in order to vote against the Winfield Foley Fire Protection District tax increase. Evidently, it's legal for them to use the fire station as a voting precinct. However, there's a difference between being legal and being ethical. Spending $16,000 to have a special election to ask for more money and then make it that we have to vote at the fire station is unethical. They could have waited until November. Oh, and I so appreciate the staff milling around in front of the parking lot.
Yeah, yeah, and these guys just out there like staring at the foliage outside the fire station. You just kind of stand there staring at the flowers like, I hope people vote to increase the taxes here. But yeah, 39 cents. And then so from 39 cents to 76 cents per $100 valued. And Lincoln County in specific times has done this. They've done this multiple times, and Catherine's really good about bringing it to people's attention. But somebody commented it'll be on the ballot in November too, so they'll try again. But it reminds you of the gas tax, right? Because the gas tax hit ballots, I believe, 3 times, got voted down 3 times. And what did our legislature do? They didn't want to listen to the people that said we don't want a gasoline tax increase. So they supposedly found this loophole. Well, if we don't do it, because I think you can't increase it more than 10 cents at a time. So they're like, oh, we'll just do it 2.5 cents a year over 5 years, and we'll get the gasoline tax increase we want, but it won't be all at one time. But Tom also raises, now I could be wrong, it could be 5 cents. Whatever it is, they're going over the threshold in increments, but Tom's got a very good point that increment every year is adding to the total. So they may very well violated the Hancock Amendment, and that's something. Again, I know that the year after that passed, the legislature, we had certain candidates running and said they were going to fight really hard to overturn it, or one particular gubernatorial candidate said, "Oh, I'll get rid of that gas tax." And it's like, well, good luck with that. I didn't see it happening. But then it's just the conversations just died. You don't hear anything else about it because now the new thing. Well, again, IP reform is going to be another big one. They're going to roll out next session. Property taxes. There are going to be all kinds of promises on property taxes. We're super early on this. Tom, I want to start with you. Any predictions on what the hot issues of the Republican Party will be, what they say they want to work on and to fix going into the next session in January of 2026? Any early predictions?
I think one of the things that they will absolutely work on is, I don't know which way to say it. It's either going to be the school choice,
yeah,
or it's going to be the school voucher. will be one of their top priorities.
And if they hold true to what they normally do, they always want to put language in there that affects homeschooling in a not positive way. They want
Yeah,
to.
but
Go ahead.
conservatives are supposed to conserve those things that have been shown to work forever and a day, which means that conservatives should not be trying to regulate the homeschooling network.
Right. Absolutely. But they do. In every single bill, somebody slips something in about um, homeschooling, and it's like the homeschoolers out there, like, we don't need to be a part of any bill. Nothing. The only thing that if you told a homeschooler, hey, we're putting something into this legislation that no random person is going to show up at your house and review paperwork, the homework and the tests and stuff that you've given your kids, they'd be like, okay, cool. But they don't do that. They want to add some kind of stipulation. They want to add some little piece of regulation or some rule for homeschoolers. And it's like, listen, if 90% of homeschool kids were as sharp as a bag of wet hair, even though I wouldn't agree with it, you might have you might have a leg to stand on there when you're trying to convince people. But that's not the case. I've known too many homeschool kids that are way smarter and way more informed than a lot of kids that went to the public schools. I'm not trying to paint with a broad brush here, but I'm just saying, generally, that's the case. And they can't even, kids, homeschooling kids are falling through the cracks. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're getting a way more solid education. It would be great, U.S. schools, as far as the amount of time spent in classroom compared to time spent outside at recess, where they run off some of that energy, so you're not locking them in a chair the majority of the day. Those schools that do that, I think in European schools and some other nations they do that, where they have a lot more recess time and less time stuck at a desk. I really wish somebody would try that formula out just to see how it worked. But again, after talking to the president of that school board in, I believe, Camden County, if I'm not mistaken, she said that the reason, because I asked her, why do you have to have a superintendent, an assistant superintendent, and all the staffing? And she said, because, and this goes for a lot of Republicans and a lot of Democrats here in the state, they both want to rule over education. The Republicans want to do it one way, the Democrats want to do it another way. But they keep adding rules of what these school districts have to do. So they have to have the staff in place in order to make sure that they check all the boxes before they even think about educating the kids. So you can't come at me and say, well, we need more funding. No, you need less rules. You need less oversight. Or, in fact, you could just dissolve the whole damn thing and be done with it. But no, both political parties want to fight over who's going to run education, and their way is the best. And then these school districts have to hire more staff in order to make sure they're following all the rules, just so they can try to educate the kids with this horrible government curriculum. So it's just it's a horrible math formula. And when you look up the formula for public education funding, you should just show a black hole, because money just gets sucked in. You suck the joy and the life out of everything, and you just keep sucking dollars down, and nobody knows where it's going. And you're just like, well, all I see is a big black hole, and light's not. It sucks so bad, light can't even escape. You can't even get joy out of this whole thing. And you're like, and you want me to throw more money at it? It's like that stupid Jess Piper gal that used to be on X all the time, was constantly saying that Republicans were going to defund education. I'm like, hey, dipstick, they can't, because in the Constitution, it says that it's 25% or something around thereof of the state budget has to go to that goes to education. Every freaking year the budget goes up. That means every year education's getting more in their budget. So there's not the Republican Party as a whole is not trying to defund education. I got really tired of her making that argument about every other day on X. I think she blocked Tom very quickly after she started citing the Constitution, and he told her how wrong she was, and then she blocked him. Is that right, Tom? Didn't she block you pretty quickly?
Yes, he did.
Well, you remember that rally she had where tens of people showed up? How prominent she is. No, but we were talking about last week how the wise and wonderful Governor Parson was honored by DESI for contributing almost $750 million added to the school funding. And the administration for elementary and secondary education bent over backwards to congratulate Republican, nay, conservative. Tom, I'm air quoting if you can't see. Conservative Republicans or legislatures and governors. Like they're not the ones who are going to rein in education spending. They're on, like you said, they're on the same team. They just have different ideas about how they want the massive empire to run.
What say you, Tom?
Oh, I'm sitting here reading. I linked a court case in the notes, and I'm sitting here reading this court case, and I finally come to the grasp of now I understand why it is that I can't understand the Hancock Amendment and how it's applied, because the courts have gotten involved in it.
Oh.
And they've made some things a tax, of which requires voter approval. And then they have determined that some things are a governmental fee, which is used for public services. And if, depending on how it is that it's applied, that's how they determine whether or not the people need to vote on it. And of course, you also have the workaround that the legislative body did with the 5-tiered gas tax. I think we're now in year 4 of, and next year will be year 5. So once again, the courts took something that the people passed that seemed to be easy enough to understand. If you wanted more revenue and you were requiring the people to put forth that, it required a vote. Well, no, the court says, no, not really. That's not really what it means. It means what it is that we say it means, and we don't think that's what it means.
How convenient.
Yeah,
you're the one who kind of first opened my eyes. A little bit of Murray Rothbard, but in the way that I like how you word it, Tom, where you're like, 9 guys in robes, like 9 guys in black robes determined this. Like it wasn't some like altruist, like metaphysical, like computer entity that rendered whether or not it was or wasn't constitutional. It's just 9 dudes in robes decided this. And I always harp on that whenever I'm talking to people about, you know, the Supreme Court and just courts in general ruling on things. I'm like, everyone has this idea that like a court ruling is like, well, you can't argue with a court ruling. A judge said it. It's like, no, that's just another guy. It's just another guy in a robe.
Yeah, and he doesn't even wear a white wig or have wooden teeth. That's what really ticks me off.
Yeah,
bring back the powdered wigs.
Yeah, I was talking to some friends the other day, and they're like, we need to bring back tar and feathering. I'm like, I mean, let's be honest. You tar and feather some politicians, you're probably going to see a change in attitude, because they're going to be like, whoa, these people are really, really ticked off right now. Like, do you see what they did to Bill? They dipped him in hot tar and then smothered him in feathers. That dude was screaming like a banshee. Maybe we shouldn't do this anymore. And you're like, yeah. I think that's the point we're trying to get across. We'll make you dance like a chicken. I don't know. Yeah, listen, I agree with you, Brandon. Tom has woken me up and got me thinking about things a little differently. In fact, I didn't hear it. But a couple years ago, My desk was in a totally different place and everything in this room. I had Tom Martz on. I said something. I think it was about the Supreme Court. I think I said the Supreme Court ruled. Or this, whatever I said. And Tom said to me, John, if you say that one more time, I'm going to slap you upside the head. And I must have been hollering into my mic, please don't hit me, Tom. Unbeknownst to me, my wife was on the other side of the door saying, hit him, Tom, hit him. So, Tom, we're not, if I come hang out with you again, I'm not bringing my wife because she's probably going to try to entice you into slapping me in the back of the head. But back to my point. Yes. Again, I tell this story often. I met Tom at Robert Smith's campaign event, and I believe that was that 2022 or 2020? I don't remember. Down in Nixa. And I heard Tom speaking with someone else. Nevada. Sorry, you're right, Nevada. And I heard Tom talking to someone else, and they said the words constitutional rights. And Tom goes, they're not constitutional rights. They're natural rights enumerated into the Constitution. And I was like, man, that was a little harsh. But as I got to talking to Tom and getting to know Tom, I'm like, no, Tom's just being upfront and honest and laying it out. And that's way better than dancing around the subject and trying to be all like a politician and just kind of word screw your way through it. Tom was just like, no, this is how it is, dude. Come on. Follow me here, bro. So yes, I have a much greater appreciation of Tom Martz now that I know that, again, I just took one sentence from him and made an assumption. You know what assuming does. So I'm glad that I got out of that and that Tom's, even though my co-host has to remind me that Tom is supposed to be on the show, I'm glad that Tom is a monthly guest on this broadcast. So we've got about a little over 8 minutes left. Okay, Brandon, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to get your guys' opinion on the Department of Homeland Security. They had a change on their website saying that if any city or state boycotts any Israeli contractor or any sort of Israeli entity, that they will withhold federal disaster preparedness funds. And immediately the backlash was quick and vengeful from, every type of, even like guys who will defend the Trump administration almost blindly. And guys like Steven Crowder and just other like hardcore Trump MAGA Republican influencers. They are like, even they were blown away by this. Like even this for them was a bridge too far. So I don't know. What are your opinions on it, and then your opinions on the reaction?
Go ahead, Tom. I'll let you go first.
Well, it blows me away in listening to somebody like a Candace Owens she wants to say that this is wrong of Trump, but it's obvious that somebody has something over his head, which is why he's doing this. Anybody who's ever read The Art of War or The Art of the Deal by Trump will brag that he hires only the best people. He surrounds himself with only the best people. So either he does surround himself with the best people and he never researched them to begin with, or he never knew that he didn't surround himself with the best people. Therefore, we have to forgive him because of his own ignorance. I mean, for everything that Trump does, there is an apologist waiting in the wings to make it so that it's somebody else's fault. It's high time that we face the facts that Benjamin Netanyahu runs Donald Trump. Flat out.
Facts.
And the fact that they're trying to withhold funds that are taxpayer money, I think the founders would have called that a treasonous activity.
Oh, yeah. As the president of the United States, putting an emphasis on a foreign country over your own citizens. I mean, you could make that argument, no doubt. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm, of course, not a fan. I'm getting a little sick and tired of the of this absolutism when it comes to the government of Israel, and that you absolutely have to go along. You can't speak ill of them, anything else, or we'll withhold funding, we'll deport you, blah, yada, 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 on and on and on, right? Not horrible. And then I'm with Tom as well. I'm tired of the excuse making. Stop making excuses for bad behavior. If you do, and here's the funny thing, right? Because again, if a Democrat was doing this, the Republicans would be losing their minds. They would blow their proverbial stacks. They, um, um, it would just just the media would be, or the Republicans would be apoplectic, right? But yes, we have to stop making excuses for bad behavior just because it's one person. I'm tired of it. Interestingly enough, on the backside of that, though, is it's nice to see that there are more Trump supporters out there that aren't making excuses and just saying, "This is stupid. What are you doing?" The Epstein thing was a pretty that was a pretty good indication that people were like, "Now wait a dang minute." Yes, you had the influencers and the real cult members out there making excuses, every excuse under the sun, but oh, this is 12D chess or whatever. But there were a lot of them like, this is not 12D chess. This is someone covering up for pedophiles. And those are two different things. Because if 12D chess is a move in pedophilia, that's a horrible game of chess, right? You don't play that type of chess. But this having to be unapologetically Israel first, or you're just not part of the cult team anymore, is it's sickening. It's disgusting. It's vile. It's un-American. It's not America first. Clearly, if you can't have a negative opinion in America about another country and without threat of pulled funding, then that's not America first. That's not making America great again. That's you coming out and doing some big puff piece for a war criminal who literally can't land in Europe out of fear of being arrested if he departs his plane. I don't know why I don't know why, except for the money thing. I don't know why you feel you have to stick up so much for this guy who would lie you into any war in any Middle Eastern country that you could possibly think of. Syria, Iran, Iraq, Libya, Lebanon, you name it, those countries. I mean, Iran's the only one left that we haven't just gone and fully invaded and torn up Jake. But yeah, I'm done with anytime someone brings up Netanyahu, I want to throw up on my shoes. Anytime someone tries to make an excuse for Trump about why he did it because he's playing a game and you guys don't know the game. I know the game. I know when a politician is completely BSing me and covering up for their friends. You have to have blinders on. You have to be under the influence of hard, like psychotropic drugs. You have to be in a trance, tripping LSD, also after taking half a bottle of Benadryl to not see the BS that's being thrown at you. You have to be in a catatonic state, unthinking, vegetative, stupid.
Well, this also comes on the heels of so a couple of European countries and then Canada announced that they support a two-state solution, and Trump's like, well, I guess we can't do a trade deal with them.
Yeah.
Like, the internal politics of Israel determines whether or not we'll do a trade deal with you.
Absolutely ridiculous. All right, Tom, real quick, plug the website for the Locke and Smith Foundation and your show on Fridays.
Legiscore, LEGISCORE.us will put you in the Locke and Smith Foundation's website. We are currently reviewing Senate bills. I think we have maybe about 3 more weeks and we will be completely done with all the Senate bills. And according to our illegal immigrant, which will soon be a naturalized citizen, He has told us that pretty much as soon as we're done reviewing bills, the very next week we will know exactly who ended up with being the most constitutional in the Senate and the most constitutional House. And then every Friday morning, except for the last Friday, I am on 104.1 FM KSGF, Springfield, Missouri, and we discuss Missouri politics. And courtesy of a listener, we are going to start a new segment. We're going to introduce it this week. We'll probably start on it next week, but somebody said that they ought to create a thing. It just says Ask Tom. So I'm going to open myself up to an Ask Tom. So whatever the question is, well, I'll take that back. There are some things that are out of bounds. But generally, whatever the question is, I will answer it to the best of my ability.
All right. Sounds awesome. All right. Thanks to Tom March again for joining us this week. And thanks to Brandon for reminding me because I am retarded. Yeah. All right. That's going to do it for this week's edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Thanks to all of you who joined us on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and those of you who listen via podcasting app or at molibertyradio.us. Also, just a quick reminder, on Sunday nights from 6 to 9 p.m. Central Time, don't forget to catch Sam and Trish Britton off the cuff radio at molibertyradio.us. And we will see you next Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. right here on the Missouri